Welcome to the Nicholas Pereira Show. We've got special guest, People's Party of Canada leader, Maxime Bernier. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be with you, Nicholas. That will be a nice show, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time you were in town, we had a lot of fun. We did this show. And then we met our friend Dominic Hardy on the street after. If you can remember that.
I remember that. I saw the video actually after that. That was a great video of you, being very, I must say, you had the right arguments against him. When he said the state own your children.
Yes.
I believe that was saying that it's like being in a communist country, and your reaction was the best reaction to do at that time.
Yeah, I remember because you guys were speaking in French, right? And I know he was calling me a lunatic and calling us a lunatic, and that's his game. He's very confrontational and that type of thing. And I could feel my blood boiling, but I was trying my breath work, my good deep breathing. But for me, when he said the children owned your state, it's one of the reasons I got involved, because I recognized, that there's a heavy influence of Marxist type philosophy within our country. My passion is philosophy. It was never politics. I feel like I'm learning politics now, but my passion was philosophy. And it was one of the reasons that I got involved is I recognized the Marxist theory and philosophy starting to infiltrate under the disguise of wokeism and identity politics. So when he said that, that was enough for me.
Too much.
Yeah. So anyways, that was a good time. But we're happy to move on from that. There's other issues now, since the 2 years of the draconian lockdowns and the pandemic that we lived through. There's other issues that are somewhat related, mainly inflation. Inflation is on a lot of Canadians' minds. I know it's a big issue here in our community of St. John. Much of St. John is living paycheck to paycheck. We're working class. We're going to our jobs every day. We're taxpayers, and inflation really hurts our community. So, could you speak a little bit to what's caused the inflation that we're seeing, and maybe what are some of the solutions that the PPC would offer?
Yes, absolutely. You're right to say that inflation is there, 6.7% in Canada right now. That's the official rate of inflation. But, people know that it is more than that. If you do your grocery, you go to your gas station, it's about 12 to 15%. The real inflation is like a tax because you are losing your purchasing power. Everybody is poor. And we have that inflation because of the big government in Ottawa, the big spending. And as you remember, during the pandemic, Justin Trudeau was very generous with all these programs, but there's no thing as a free lunch, and so we have to pay for that. And now we are paying with that inflation tax because what Justin Trudeau did, they spent $450 billion. That was our deficit in the last 2 years, but we didn't have the money. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government did not tax us for that. They didn't have any money. So what happened, the Bank of Canada bought the Canadian bonds and they printed money for that. So when you have more money in circulation and the same amount of goods and services, so you have more money chasing fewer goods, and that's inflation. And now we have that inflation. So inflation is always a question of a monetary policy. The Bank of Canada did print money, and still the Bank of Canada is printing money out of thin air, like the Fed in the US and other central banks. And we have that inflation. So the only way to fight that is to be sure to have a balanced budget, because like that, you won't ask the Bank of Canada to buy our bonds and print more money. So have a balanced budget, and that's in our plan. And we want to balance the budget in 4 years, but also to say to the Bank of Canada, we must tell the Bank of Canada to have an inflation target of 0%, because now the inflation target for the Bank of Canada, it's 2%. So, and we have inflation of 6.7 officially, and the real one about 12 to 15. The inflation target must be 0%, because 2% inflation is too much, and 20% also. So we don't want Canadians to lose their purchasing power by 2% every year. So we want them to keep their standard of living, and that's why you need to speak to the bank and having an agreement with the bank, because every 5 years, the federal government will sign an agreement with the Bank of Canada about the inflation target. So we must tell the bank that it would be 0%. Like that, the Bank of Canada won't be able to print money out of thin air. Everybody will keep their purchasing power, and our standard of living won't go down. So that's the solution. But if you look at the establishment politicians, they don't speak about that. They don't want to tell the truth. They're saying, we must spend more. We must spend more to help Canadians. And actually, that's what the Trudeau government did at the last budget. They created a new programs for $50 billion. So they will spend more money, will have a deficit. So that is putting oil on the inflation fire. So the inflation will go up and we will be poor. So we must control the government. We must have a smaller government in Ottawa. We must cut our expenses, balance the budget, and have a zero inflation target with the Bank of Canada. And like that, we will be able to be more prosperous.
In the thank you for taking the time to explain it, because I feel that many Canadians, they don't really understand, like myself, I'm putting myself in that category as well, to say, it's not something that we necessarily pay too much attention to. A lot of us were disconnected with politics. I think that the pandemic, one of the positive things, it's woken us a lot up to what is going on with our government and where are we headed. During the campaign here in St. John, Wayne Long is our Liberal incumbent. He would consistently use the word invest. I would say they're spending, and he would say we're investing. And so when I reminded everyone that it was actually a Liberal government, Jean Chrétien, who was able to balance the budget, it was a Liberal government. His reply was that nobody can predict when they're going to balance the budget. I was just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, you just have to take the tough decision. It's easy to balance a budget when you want to do it. But when you just, for you, it's not important and you're spending money, knowing that, your people and Canadians maybe don't understand that when you spend money that you don't have, that's created inflation. So I think they believe that people don't understand that. So I can spend money, I can buy votes, and people will be happy. But no, you can balance a budget. We are giving $5 billion to foreign aid to help other countries to build roads in Africa or fight climate change in Africa. We are broke. We cannot do that. So we can save $5 billion there. Corporate welfare, $10 billion that the federal government is giving to big corporations as subsidies. We must stop that. It must be fair for everybody. I don't believe that the small restaurant here in St. John will have a grant or something like that, because they don't have any lobbyists that will lobby the federal government in Ottawa. So it's unfair for small business owner. So we can save there. We can save by cutting the CBC, $1.3 billion. There's a lot of places that you can look and save money without, and you can balance the budget without increasing taxes. That's something that we must speak. And you're right, when Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin were in government, they were able to balance the budget because they had in front of them Preston Manning. And Preston Manning with the Reform Party was asking every day to balance the budget, and every day. And so he was able to influence the public opinion. And the federal government decided, okay, we'll be serious. We will balance the budget. Now you have the official opposition in Ottawa that is asking for more spending and more spending and more spending. So the Trudeau government is spending money, and we are paying that inflation tax. people must understand inflation is a tax. We have inflation because we have a big fat government in Ottawa that is spending money that we don't have.
Got it. One of the things when it comes to our grocery bills being higher, gas prices going up, rent and housing is also going up. Can you speak a little bit, because that's a big concern with folks here. Just last night after the rally, remember we were driving and we saw a few tents set up, some homeless. This is something we've never seen in St. John, outward in the public, just tents setting up. And unfortunately, I see with the way things are going that we may start to see more and more of that. Can you speak to a little bit about housing and how the federal government and specifically a PPC government would help with the housing crisis that we're facing?
Yeah, absolutely. Before speaking about housing, I want you spoke about the grocery bill. If you're serious to fight inflation, because I want to speak about that because, some conservative candidates for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, like Pierre Poilievre, some of these candidates are saying, we will fight inflation. That's important. But it's just a buzzword and a slogan. They won't do it because you can do it right now to help people when they're buying, when they're doing their groceries. Actually, you have a system here in Canada called supply management and a dairy cartel, and Canadians are paying twice the price for milk, dairy, and poultry. So you must change that system to be sure that Canadians will have a fair price for these products. If you look at the prices here in Canada for milk, poultry, and eggs, and the one in the US, it is twice the price. So if you're serious about that, you must change that system, and that's part of our policy. And if you're serious about, so that will help Canadians. If you're serious about housing, you must tell them the real solution. And actually, I must admit that the finance minister, Minister Freeland, said it and at the press conference that the prices of houses is going up because we have more people that are coming to Canada and they must live somewhere. So it's a question of the demand, not the supply. So the solution is the immigration. Now in Canada, we have mass immigration, 450,000 newcomers a year that are coming to our country. It's after 2 years, it will be the population of Nova Scotia. Every 2 years, we'll have a new Nova Scotia in Canada. And that's mass immigration. So what we must do, and all these people, 40% of them are going to Toronto and Vancouver. So that is a big pressure. That is putting a big pressure on the housing market in Toronto and Vancouver. And so if you want to solve that, you must just, have fewer people that will come to Canada. And that's our proposal, a maximum of 150,000 a year, more economic immigrants that will come here. But the mainstream media don't like that proposal, and the establishment politicians don't want to speak about that. They don't speak about the real solution. And so that is the real solution. We need to have, yes, more people that are coming to Canada, but we don't believe in mass immigration. Justin Trudeau and the Conservative, it's always more and more and more people. We must take care of them. So we must be able to have fewer of them, but taking care of them and having the money to take care of them. So that's our proposal, and that will solve the housing market. That's the only solution.
The rhetoric that comes from immigration is that Maxime Bernier is racist. Right? Yeah. Well, how do you answer that with that kind of rhetoric that's like they start to pull on identity politics,
absolutely,
and start to use identity politics to, in my opinion, cloud the actual problem. What is your, rebuttal or your answer when you do get accused of being racist? Which I think is hilarious because the fact that me and you are sitting here as an immigrant, right, and we've toured together, done things. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I'm just, how do you personally address?
Become a member of the Canadian Unity Project by visiting the links in the description.
Yeah, thanks for the question. When when I did my speech on that subject, on immigration, I was in Toronto, and that was during the electoral campaign 2019. And the people in the crowd were immigrants from different faith, Muslim, Christian, Jewish people, from different ethnicity. And they were there and listening to me, and I received a standing ovation. Why? Because these people that are Canadians now came here following the rules. And, it's a privilege to be Canadians. And now they're seeing that everybody can come to Canada. Our doors are open for everybody without any conditions. During that time, if you didn't speak English or French, it was tough. It was very difficult for you to come to Canada. And all these kind of rules are not there anymore. We are welcoming everybody. So they're looking at that and say, it's not fair. We followed the rules, and now, these people are coming, and they know that at that time we had more economic immigrants. Now, if you look at our immigration system, only 24% of our immigrants are economic immigrants. And an economic immigrant is a person that will come here and will have a job, and because a Canadian entrepreneur was not able to find a Canadian for that job. So and that person, it's easier for that person to integrate our society, to be part of our society, to participate in our society. So now more than 76% of them are coming under the refugees, and they're not real refugees. When you cross the border and the Roxham Road in Quebec illegally with your Gucci and all that, you're not a refugee. We need to help the real refugees that are in a camp somewhere and where their life is in danger. I don't believe that the people who are crossing the border in Quebec, that their life is in danger in the state of New York. So we have a lot of fake immigrants and that are coming to Canada, and also people on the reunification of family. They're not economic immigrants. So if you decide to come to Canada, it's a very tough decision for you personally. You are leaving behind your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother for a better life, or to come to Canada. It's a difficult decision, but it's your decision as an individual. So when we have reunification of family, that allows an immigrant to have with him his mom, dad, sister, brothers, and these people must come to Canada if they're under the economic immigrants, if they have a job in Canada. I'm not against, if you are a lady or a man and you want to come to Canada and you have a job in Canada, and so that's okay. You can have your family, your direct family with you, your wife, your husband, your kids. That's perfect. But the larger family, brother, sister, parents, they must come under the economic immigrant system, and they're not. So that's our proposal. And, in Canada, we received more immigrants by capita than the US and all these European countries. So yes, we are open, and we will still be open, but we cannot save the world. That's the reality.
It is the reality, and I feel like again, our politicians play a lot to our emotions and get us stirring emotionally. So we know immigration, it's all related. It's like a domino effect, right? Yeah. So we've got inflation happening. Yeah. We've got mass immigration happening. I heard Justin Trudeau, same thing with Chrystia Freeland saying, he said the same thing. Oh, well, we have so many people coming to Canada. And he seemed to toss it to construction, like construction was the problem. Yeah. He said, we have so many people coming to Canada and construction isn't keeping up. Kind of, in my opinion, blaming maybe private sector construction. Oh, well, you guys aren't keeping up with it, right? Yeah. And I feel that he's setting up the excuse that therefore we have to create government housing. Yeah. What do you think about creating mass government housing and what that may do to our communities? across the country.
But Justin Trudeau and the Conservatives think that they know better than the provincial government, and they don't respect the Constitution because building housing, it's under the provincial jurisdiction. And so that must be provinces in charge of that. You know, the market is very different in Toronto than here in Saint John or there in Vancouver. So that's why it's under the provincial jurisdiction. So by putting money for that, Justin Trudeau is interfering in provincial jurisdiction. We believe that every province must be responsible for their own jurisdiction and their own responsibilities in the Constitution. But no, for them, you know, they saw a problem and they said, okay, we have the tools, we have the money, we'll build that. But first of all, we don't have the money. And second, the federal government does not have the jurisdiction to do that. He must respect the provinces, and they may have different, you know, way to deal with it. You know, it can be the solution can be very different in Saint John than in Toronto. So let's the provincial politicians and municipal politicians to find the best solution. I believe in a radical decentralization. The best government is always the government that is near the people. And so and our constitution is like that. We must respect our constitution, and doing that, you'll have a radical decentralization in Canada. You'll have a smaller government that will not interfere in provincial jurisdiction, respect people, respect our Charter of Rights, and that housing, it's not putting more money at that problem. And that will take years to do that. So that's not a solution for tomorrow. The real solution for tomorrow is, like I said, immigration. You can stop it right now. You can have fewer immigrants right now. So that's the real solution.
You mentioned radical decentralization, which I'm all about, and I buy into that philosophy that government is better when it's closer to the people.
Absolutely.
Right? If not, you have someone in Ottawa making decisions for the folks here in Saint John, but they're not seeing it. They're not here. They don't understand necessarily the nuances or the dynamic of the community, which somebody locally could do. It doesn't seem like we're just dealing with a centralization in Canada now, but it seems like there is a globalist agenda to centralize the world, so that we have now not just okay, everything's happening in Ottawa. It seems like we have kind of a new government in a way that's starting to be formed outside of Canada. Unelected Canadians starting to make decision in the form of the UN or the World Health Organization. Can you speak to the globalists, what seems to be a movement to centralize the globe, and how that affects us here in Canada?
Nicolas, you're absolutely right. It's centralization at the global stage. And so with the UN, with the World Economic Forum, with the World Health Organization, all these international organizations, their goal is they think that they know better. The elites, they believe that they know better than our government and our people here, and they have the solution for everything. It's central planning. Central planning does not work. We know that. If you look at your history, you know that it does not work. So they want to do that. They want to control everything. And they started by immigration with the UN Global Compact on Migration. They're saying everybody must be able to go to everywhere in every country. No, you must respect the borders. You must respect the sovereignty of a country. And that's a privilege to be Canadian. That's a privilege to be an American. So there's legislation there. But UN with the Global Compact, UN with the Paris Accord, they want to impose to everybody, okay, you must do that. You must have a carbon tax. You must fight that. We are against that. Our policies must be done in Canada by Canadian politicians for our country, for our people. But these organizations, in fact, are not imposing their point of view to our country. It's because our politicians are very happy to be there with them, and they believe in the same philosophy. They believe in socialism. They believe in centralization. Like I said, Trudeau is doing that with our own constitution. So Trudeau and all these establishment politicians believe in that philosophy of socialism and globalist, and so they're very happy to take all these policies and ideas coming from these organizations and implement that in Canada. That's the same thing with the pandemic. What happened, we, for the first time in the history of the world, we decided to lock down healthy people to fight a pandemic. And that was not the solution. So our position, we are the only national political party against globalism and for the sovereignty of our country. So these organizations won't be able to impose to us their philosophy and their policies. But we need to protect our sovereignty. And that's too important because we have a different culture in Canada, and we don't want the UN or the World Economic Forum to put more restriction of our day-to-day life. I believe in freedom. I believe that every people must be free to do what they want to do. And for that, they must not have big government intervention in their day-to-day life. And if you are with these international organizations, that's their goal. Try to control your life with different policies that they are promoting.
Yes, the way I see it, and you've said this in many of your speeches, so we spoke a lot about the economic challenges and solutions that we're having, but at the same time, and they're interlinked, but we're fighting a cultural battle, an ideology battle, an ideology revolution is what you're saying. Wokeism is really come into play, and this all has to do, from what I can tell, from the globalist movement, why everybody has to mix and everybody has to be together, and almost like a new religion's forming, a new this, a new that. It's like a new philosophy that they're basically imposing on people, and almost, from my perspective, pressuring people to take it. You're not included in the society. Corporations have their ESG scores. So if anybody's not familiar, that's environmental social governance. What do you think about these? Because these are coming from the World Economic Forum. This is not Canadian corporations are now following ESG scores, and this is affecting their credit. This is like a social credit system for corporations, which essentially, it feels like eventually will come down to an individual. So it's not just, do you pay your taxes, but do you also believe what we believe? How does the PPC stand on the cultural challenges or the philosophical challenges that we're facing as we move forward?
And another example of all that is the central electronic ID that they want to promote. So that will be a way to control you, or the central electronic currency. I know that central banks are looking at that. So, they will know everything what you're doing with your money. If you don't have any real money, it's all electronic. They will be able to say, okay, you spend too much money for gas and that's not good. So they can control you. So that's happening. They are looking at that when I'm saying these international organizations. So it's a way to control people, yes, and control your behavior. You have a nice behavior. You're gonna have more money in your. We're gonna give you more electronic money, and no, you won't be able to. Like the pandemic, you're a bad citizen. You won't be able to go to a restaurant because you didn't have your 2 shots. So that was a kind of controlling and giving some benefit to Canadians that are listening to the state. Okay, you took the 2 shots, you have some privilege. You didn't, you don't. So that happened the last 2 years. And that can happen in other fields all across the country and in other countries. That's the vision of these organizations. So yes, that's why I said we are fighting against that, the woke, the socialism, the imposition of their values on us, and that's an important battle. We must educate people or inform people about all that. It's not conspiracy theory. I've read the book of the COVID-19, the Great Reset. I said, I need to write that. I need to know. And when he wrote, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. That was in the book. That's not a conspiracy theory. No. That's their logic. That's communism. That's so we are fighting that. We believe in people. We have faith in people. We don't believe in another entity that will tell you every day that, okay, you're a good Canadian, you did that. You're a bad Canadian, you did that. So because you're a bad Canadian, you will lose some privileges. No, we need to respect people, and we need to understand that people are responsible. I believe in freedom, but I believe in responsibility. You do good things, good for you. You do bad things, it's too bad, but you are responsible of your actions. And right now, we're not teaching that to people. They think that the government will give you everything, and you must do everything that the government is telling you. No, you must do what you want to do in your life, and having a smarter government that will respect your point of view.
Yes, and we can definitely see it, especially within the school system, the education systems, how much this woke culture is being
It's
pushed.
everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's in Hollywood. Right. It seems to be heavily pushed. There is a pushback, but cancel culture is alive.
Oh yeah,
right. We know that, right? That they don't want to hear these opposing views or different thought perspectives about how life should be lived. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we face as Canadians is this woke culture, especially for those of us who hold on to some of the old values, family values, traditional values. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. These type of things.
The science,
the science. Yeah, they love the word science, right? Yeah. But not when it comes to that context. It seems. Yeah.
But you're right about censorship and cancel culture. It's everywhere. Actually, I'll give you an example for myself on Twitter. The last 2 months, I was not able to grow my supporters on Twitter. I was at 185,000 for 2 months. Usually, I was growing by 1,000 new followers every 2 days. Wow. And so for the last 2 months, I didn't move. But when we had that news about the new owner of Twitter, whoop, my God, in a day, I had 1,000 followers in 1 day, and now we are growing. So censorship is there on social media, and it's a little bit more difficult for us because, we have these leftists that are controlling big tech corporation. But at least with Twitter right now, we'll have a real free platform there, and that will help us. But yeah, you're right, censorship, the mainstream media. We are a national party. We had 5% of the vote. We are the fastest growing political party in the history of this country. After 3 years at 5%, it took 15 years for the Green Party of Canada to have more than 1.6% of the vote. We did that in our first election, and the second one, 5%. And maybe the third one, I don't know, 10, 15%. We are growing. But the mainstream media don't want to give us some visibility. It's very difficult, but that's why I'm traveling. That's why I'm with you, and I'm in Atlantic Canada for the next 3 weeks, and meeting our people, building our organization, finding candidates, and I hope that you'll be another candidate for the next election. You were one of our star candidates here in New Brunswick, and I believe that you'll be with us for the next one. But we want to build our organization, and it's going well. So like now, we'll see what will be the future for us. But I believe that the future will be bright because people understand that we cannot live in a world like that when you don't allow the other point of view to be here, to be, it's always a cancel or censorship. Now that we have censorship by the big tech, but the Trudeau government wants to do the same. And they have a legislation, Bill C-11, for more censorship on social media. So, Nicolas, if you're successful, and you are successful on social media, and you have a lot of viewers, you will be regulated by the CRTC, and you'll have to pay taxes. And if you don't say something that they don't like, they will cancel you. And so we don't want any control on social media by government.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pillar of a free society is freedom of speech.
Yeah.
If we kill freedom of speech, we're killing our free society. And there's some, folks with different political ideologies who sometimes say, what are you guys fighting for freedom for? We are free. We are free. But they cannot see that actually our freedoms are slowly being stripped away. It doesn't happen overnight, but they're slowly being stripped away. And our very culture is turning into a culture. For example, we had many supporters here in St. John. And I got many calls to say, Nick, I'll be voting for you, and I'll be voting for the Maxime, I'll be voting for the PPC, but I'll never post about it because, I don't want to get the backlash. I don't want to have cancel culture, right, come down on me. I don't want to say what it is that I really believe, so I'm going to go along with everything, go along to get along type of thing. I'm hopefully, I'm saying to people, I know you have been too, say we can't just go along to get along because eventually we'll just lose our culture and lose our freedoms. We cannot be silent about these issues.
Absolutely. People must have the courage of their conviction. If they believe in something, they must be able to speak about what they believe. And, that's the basics of our society. And when people are saying, we are in a free country, how come, I was in Fredericton and I spoke with a lady and she decided not to wear a mask. And she was, because of that, 5 days in jail. 5 days in jail for not wearing a mask. And, it must be your personal decision. And wearing a mask or not, it's not based on science anyway. It's not. We have all the data showing that. So that's happening in our country. And for me personally, I did a rally in Manitoba in a park. And after that rally, I've been arrested, handcuffed, put in jail for 12 hours for a non-crime after a political gathering. That was political repression. That's happening in Canada. We are not free anymore. People must understand that. And we cannot take our freedoms for granted anymore.
Absolutely. And again, I think if people are complying, they're thinking, well, we're free, but they're again, it's our job, right, to go out there and show the other side of the story and say, well, actually, this is how our freedoms and therefore our very way of life is being threatened. And Canada's always been a place where people want to come to. It's we should, like a hot commodity, right? You don't just devalue it and let everybody kind of come in. You have to make sure that we protect that. I want to speak on one last subject before we wrap up here today, which is you had mentioned a little bit earlier of the candidate race of the Conservative Party, specifically Pierre Poilievre. He looks like he's kind of the leading horse in the race, and he's out there. What's interesting is when I first decided to get involved with politics, he was actually the first email I sent was to his office because I thought, well, this is a guy who speaks well, and I really liked what he was talking specifically about some of his economic ideas and policies and such. But as I started to learn more about the Conservative Party overall, I said, no, that's not for me. He seems to have now jumped on the freedom bandwagon.
Conviction, they supported Pierre Poilievre, they supported the Trudeau government, and now he's speaking about freedom and everybody must be free. But at the same time, look at just the housing challenges that we have. He's saying, I will force municipalities to change their regulations on housing. That's a provincial jurisdiction. So he's speaking for freedom, but he's saying at the same time, I won't respect the Constitution and I will force municipalities to do what I think is best. No, and at the same time, he's saying, I'm fighting inflation, but at the same time, he doesn't want to end the cartel in poultry, eggs, and dairy. So if you're serious about inflation, that's the first thing to do. He's speaking about inflation, but he doesn't want to impose to the Bank of Canada a zero inflation target. So for me, it's all about buzzword, slogan, focus group. And, he's speaking about something now because it's popular. But when you have conviction, you must speak about what you believe. And if it's popular or not, it's not important, because what we are doing at the PPC, we believe that we have the right vision for the country, and we have the right ideas and the right policies based on strong principles, individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. So I'm speaking about that, and I spoke about that when it was not popular, because I believe that these ideas are the best one for the country, and the more I speak about it, the more support we will have, and that's happening actually. But for traditional establishment politicians like Polyev and the conservatives and the liberals, they are doing polling, and that's it. Okay, that's people like to hear about that. I'll speak about that, but there's no conviction, and so tomorrow they will do the opposite. And so we cannot trust politicians like that. He's coming from a background, and he said, I want to build pipelines also. I will build pipelines to the east, the west, everywhere. But Harper said the same thing, and I was part of that government. And we, when I was a conservative, didn't build any pipelines across the country. So he's saying that the question is, how will you be able to build pipeline? And he doesn't want to answer that question, because if he did, he will maybe unplease Quebec, and Quebec won't like that, or BC, because there's a solution again, an easy one. You use the Constitution, Section 9210, and you just say, this pipeline is for the national interest of our country. By doing that, the federal government will have full jurisdiction, full responsibility, full autonomy to approve and do and construct any pipelines across the country. So, and if you do that, you'll be able to impose a pipeline on Quebec or BC. But Polyev won't speak about that, because his goal is to have more support and buy your votes. So he won't speak, and that's why it's not serious. It's all about a focus group and slogan and things like that. I believe that you must have strong policies, strong ideas, and speak about that, and take some time to explain that to the population. And that's what we are doing. It's a kind of informing the population about the issues. So I believe that Polyev may be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, but like I said, when I left the party, this party, the Conservative Party of Canada, is intellectually and morally corrupt, because they're only conservative in name. And so, and by approving everything that Trudeau did the last 2 years, they're giving more credibility to the socialism and the leftists, because they don't have the courage to speak about free market policies, conservative policies, because it's not popular. So they're working with the liberals, and they're helping the liberals to promote leftist and socialist policies. So they're not conservative. And Polyev may be speaking like that right now, because the conservative memberships, some of them are still real conservative. And after that, his goal would be to be prime minister. And because we are living in a socialist era, and he's doing politics by polling, he will go to the left, like Andrew Scheer, like O'Toole, like all these one. It can take a couple of months after the election, but he will do that. So for us, we'll stay focused on what we believe. We won't change, and we believe that that's the only way that we can grow and change this country for better.
Yeah, and I that's what I appreciate about you, what I appreciate about us at the PPC, is that conviction to say, no, these are the ideas that we've got and that we're running it. We know they work. History shows that they work, and and history also shows us that these socialist ideas will eventually crumble.
That's it.
Unfortunately, we may have to go through tough times for people to wake up to the fact that these policies don't work. They haven't worked in any other country who's tried to implement them.
Absolutely.
But then, the PPC will be there at the swing back. It's just as simple as that. And I think, like you said, building the pipelines, using federal jurisdiction and saying this is for national interest. It is for national interest because it would unify our country.
Yeah.
Why are we fighting Alberta? Yeah. Why are we fighting? Like, it's crazy to me that we're fighting our economic engine instead of working with it and being able to create wealth for Canadians. Canada should be we shouldn't be in a deficit. Yeah. We should be a very wealthy country, given the fact of how much land, resources that we have, talent that we have. We should be looking at innovation and really driving that economic engine up.
Absolutely, Nicholas. And you're right about pipelines. It's not only for the prosperity of this country, but for the unity of this country. You have a point there. If you go out west, when you have 30% of the population that are ready to separate, there's something there. But, the traditional establishment politicians won't speak about that. They don't want. But, when you have a province and 30% of people in a province that said, I don't want to be Canadian anymore, you must address that. You must have a solution for that. And we have the solution with our radical decentralization, with being able to build pipelines. So we have a solution for that. And I believe that the time is on our side. We just have to be out there. And with your help and the help of all your viewers, we'll be able to have a freer and real, not like Poliev said, a freer and a more prosperous country.
Awesome. Maxime, thank you so much for being here, touring around. I know, again, you can't travel, the only country in the world where you can't travel by plane or train or a boat because you decided not to take the 2 shots. I've also decided not to take it. It's crazy that we can't travel, but we're getting it done. You're going by car, and you've consistently showed your conviction that whatever they throw at us, that we won't stop. We're only going to continue to grow. We're the fastest party growing in the history of Canada. And I think that's something amazing to be part of. Maxime, do you have any final words before we wrap up?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to be here with you today. And yes, I want to see more people coming at our event tonight. Nicolas will be there, I'll be there. But for me, my goal tonight is to be able to answer your questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I want to have a conversation with you. So stay tuned, follow me on social media. Like I said, I'm doing a tour in Atlantic Canada, but I won't be in Newfoundland because I cannot travel by boat, by air, or by train in this country. But for people in Newfoundland, stay tuned. As soon as I will have the right to travel, that I will regain my constitutional rights to be able to travel across this country, I'll be in Newfoundland also.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we'll see everybody tonight. Like, comment, share this out. And you can follow us. We're spending the rest of the day in St. John, going to visit some historical sites, take some photos, meet some people, and then we'll be there tonight at Kent Theatre. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Become a member of the Canadian Unity Project by visiting the links in the description.